Welcome, everyone. My name is Fred Burton. I'm a fourth year medical student at Dartmouth Geisel School of Medicine. So welcome to the start of the Sowing Seeds specialty series. This week, we'll focus on the specialty of psychiatry. This series is a part of our Sowing Seeds program, created during the pandemic and continued by our national president, Chantel Thompson, in collaboration with the Alumni Affairs Committee. Throughout this year-long program, we will provide resources on how to succeed as a pre-med and medical student. And we'll touch on everything about financial literacy to preparing for board exams and more. So make sure you are a national member by visiting snma.org and signing up to stay in the know. So first off, I would like to introduce some of the amazing panelists that we have for today. Starting off, I would like to introduce Dr. Danielle Hairston. She's a psychiatrist, APA Black Caucus president, and program director at Howard University.
Hello, Fred.
Hi, good seeing you. Up next, we have Dr. Brittany Tarrant. She's a child and adolescent fellow at UCLA Medical Center. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Next, we have Dr. Danielle Robinson Jenkins. She's a psychiatrist at McGuire VA Medical Center.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And Dr. Isaiah Crum. He's a PGY1 psychiatry resident at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Terrence Embry, PGY1 psychiatry resident at Yale Medical Center.
Thank you for having me, everyone.
So good seeing everyone, and kind of just had a few questions that wanted to ask you guys. So if you guys could kind of tell us where you trained for medical school, where you are now, and how did you choose psychiatry? And in the meantime, anyone watching can fill in a comment and put a question in the comment section, and we'll get to those a little bit later. But Dr. Hairston, would you like to start?
Sure. I went to medical school at the Howard University, the real and only HU. And what were my other questions? Oh, how did I choose psychiatry? I don't really like anything else. I don't like much. And psychiatry was the only rotation that I looked forward to going to. I initially came in thinking I wanted to do internal medicine because I wanted to work with HIV patients. Then I learned about my subspecialty, which is consultation liaison psychiatry. And I learned that I could still see HIV patients and still do the specialty that I enjoyed. So I am a consultation liaison psychiatrist at Howard University Hospital. Now I'm back as the program director for a couple years, and I work on the consult service. I work in the emergency department, every floor from labor and delivery to the ICUs. And then one day a week, I work in the HIV clinic doing collaborative care. So that's what I do.
Wow. Dr. Tarrant.
Hi, so I also went to the Howard University College of Medicine, best med school ever. That is where I met my mentor, Dr. Hairston. So I came into med school knowing that I wanted to do psychiatry. I majored in psychology in undergrad and pretty much knew I wanted to be in the mental health realm by the time I got to med school. So I agree. I didn't really, by the time I got to fourth year and knew that I was applying to psychiatry, I had gone through all of the rotations and knew that I was just not cut out for any of the rest of them. Definitely a psychiatrist at heart. And it was just a good fit for me in terms of my interests, lifestyles, the passions that I have, what I find interesting clinically. And what else? What was the other questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was mainly just the school you went to and how did you choose psychiatry for now?
Yes. Thank you.
I guess up next, Dr. Robinson.
Oh. Hey, so it's like a whole little trend. So yeah, I went to the real HU, Howard College of Medicine. And that's where I met like Dr. Hairston, Dr. Tarrant. And my road to psychiatry, it wasn't a direct route, I would say. When I always knew I was going to do medicine. When I first went into medical school, my plan was actually to go into OB-GYN. I knew I wanted to work with women, And that was kind of like, if you want to work with women, you go into OB. But it wasn't until actually my third year when I was on my clinical rotations, I'm like coming back with all this extra information about patients. I'm like talking to them, trying to meet them where they are. And I used to actually get in trouble. And it wasn't until I was on my psychiatry rotation where it's encouraged to talk to patients. It's encouraged to come back with more information. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, I really like psychiatry. And even once I chose psychiatry, I did kind of struggle a little bit of just saying like, is this really what I want to do? There is sometimes like some stigma associated with it. I was always like, I'm going to do OB. Everybody knew Danielle was going to go do OB. And it wasn't until I was really talking with my mentors, I was talking with my family, and they were like, look, if this is something you're passionate about, if this is something you want to do, do it. Like, this is your life. So I ended up choosing psychiatry and just kind of looking at my life story, and I minored in psychology, but that was just because I thought it was interesting. I did not know I was going to end up in psychiatry, but I love it. It's a field where there's a lot of versatility. There's never like just any type of dull moment. You see one patient, and I'm just very happy with my choice that I made. So I'm thankful to be here.
All right. And once again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type those into the comment box and we can check those out a little bit later. Dr. Crum.
Hello. Sorry, my internet is tripping just a little bit, but I did not go to the real HU, unfortunately. No, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, so I went to UNMC for medical school. And when I first got to med school, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do. I thought about emergency medicine for a while. And when it came down to it, I was kind of torn between those two, kind of heading into, the middle part of third year. And for me, as I kind of like reflected on which patients it was that I was like really excited to take care of every day, it was always the patients who had the complex social history or the lifetime of trauma. And, similar to other panelists, I was bringing back just way too much information, especially for the ER. Spending 14 minutes in a patient's room was just crazy in ER. And so I went ahead and committed to psych just, probably 2 or 3 months before fourth year started. And it was, it was great. Best decision I ever made.
Nice. And Dr. Embry.
Yeah. So I went to Meharry Medical College, also at HBCU. So when I came into medical school, I thought I wanted to be a surgeon because that's what I was told that I should be growing up. And like when you watch TV shows about medicine, that was like the thing that they showed. It was like the cool thing. And so I came in wanting to be a surgeon, but it was my third year clerkship when I did psychiatry, and I was just blown away, and I had great mentorship. And it was the first time that I saw myself doing something other than surgery, but I wasn't quite convinced. So then I took a research year, and it was actually during this research year when I lost a very close friend to me that I actually went to therapy for the first time. And it was in working with my therapist who was Black and who was queer, who had locks. And it was like just this connection. And we just talked about what I really, truly enjoyed in medical school and the things that kept coming up. And I kept talking about psychiatry, and I kept going back to psychiatry. And so he was like, you need to explore psychiatry. And so I did that. I went to conferences. I joined the APA. I joined the Black Caucus. I was reading through emails, like everything Dr. Harrison was sending. I was just drawn in. I felt like, you know what, this is where I can be. And that's how I ended up doing psychiatry.
Nice. Thank you. So another question that some people may understand the importance of versus others may not have really been able to experience this, but could you guys speak on the importance of mentorship and kind of just like stories about how that really impacted your trajectory? And if anyone wants to jump in.
I can start. Mentorship is very important. As you can see, 2 of us from Howard are here, and even Terrence is talking about Dr. Harrison as well. I think she's like a prime example of someone that really just pours into the people that are coming behind her. And just a funny story about mentorship is that you can't be afraid. Like, one of my favorite models and the way that I kind of just live my life is closed mouths don't get fed, because I don't know if you all are in YBAD, but that's how I met Dr. Hairston. She posted one day when people were doing all of their introductions, and she said that she was, what were you, a chief resident at that time in psychiatry at Howard? And I'm just the lowly MS2, but I knew I wanted to do psych, and I needed to get, more mentors and get some advice. And I just like cold commented her and said, hey, can I walk across the bridge and meet you one day? And of course she was warm and welcoming and said, yes, of course. And she's literally been like a lifeline throughout this entire time that I've been on this journey with psychiatry. So it's been important to me to have those kind of mentors, and then also for me to see what a model of a good mentor is and be that for other people. Because it's, it's one thing to turn in your ARS, to pass step and do all of that stuff, but you really need people kind of just pouring into you and giving you advice that you wouldn't be able to find on a Reddit thread. So that's, I have other mentors besides Dr. Hairston. You kind of get them at other stages within your training and just in your life. But those initial mentors that you have kind of just pulling you up are really important.
Nice.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Dr. Terrence said, like having a mentor is very important. From med school, talking with Dr. Hairston, talking with other mentors. They're not just in psychiatry. One of my main ones is actually in anesthesia. And they were the ones who really encouraged me to go into psychiatry, even when I was in residency and trying to navigate that. Or just having like questions or having a hard day talking, having someone who you can talk to, who can supervise you is really important. And I think that why try to really reinvent the wheel when you can have someone who can offer that guidance, who can, like Dr. Karen said, pour into you, give you the knowledge base, help you navigate from day to day. So I am so incredibly thankful for my mentors, and I think it's incredibly important.
Nice. Thank you.
I'll just say, shout out to all my mentees. Y'all are all my mentees anyway. Anyone who is Black and wants to go into psychiatry. But I also have peer mentors. So for people who are like, who graduated like maybe 3 years before me or the year before me, they still know. They've still gone a little farther than I have, especially in being a program director. I have my program director mentors who I can ask, and we're in a group text and I can say like, what are my residents talking about? Are y'all doing this? It's important to know that a mentor doesn't have to be someone who is 20 years ahead of you or 30 years ahead of you. It can be someone who's your peer as well, or someone who's just a couple years ahead of you in training or medical school. And it's very important that we have a group. So I call them like my little Hairston gang, because if I can't help them, now I will do anything for them. They know that. But if I can't help them, or someone new comes and they need a mentor, I know that I can just shoot a text or an email to all of them and figure out how we can network and support each other. Because while we have gone to Howard, we've gone to Meharry, we have this HBCU network. That is not the case for all students. So it's very important to know that you have someone who has your back, because it can be a very isolating experience, and it can be great, but it can also be treacherous. So you need to have someone in your corner, someone who knows what it's like to be in your place.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can, if I can jump in on that one, it's mentorship is something that I think is really important, especially if you're Black or a underrepresented minority in medicine, because there's obviously not as many people that look like us. Dr. Hairston doesn't know this, but I actually attended a recruitment event that was led by like 3 or 4 Black psychiatry program directors. And at that event, one thing that they really kind of drilled into us was that, like, as Black applicants, like we're desired, right? And we're the prize. And one thing that was something I had never really conceptualized is that programs actually want us and actually are seeking us out and recruiting us. And if they're not doing that, don't consider those programs. And so that was something that I was really inspired by, and it kind of changed my whole approach to the residency application process. And so mentorship is important, especially being able to connect with people. But even events like this, where you're able to kind of listen to people talk who've gone through it, you can really pick up on some excellent tips and things that will help you along the way.
I second everything that was said. I also was at that same event, and it was phenomenal. And I really used that advice, especially like how to frame my personal statement, because I was at that point in my personal statement where I don't think I was very personal or also very direct about like actually what I want to work with. And after coming from that event, I got the boldness to say, I want to go to a program that respects that I want to work with Black people, knowing that I'm not only going to work with Black people, but in my future, that's who I want to work with. That's who I want to help. And I was empowered to say that. And also, Dr. Tarrant, you held an event that I also went to, and a lot of other Black medical students went to, was also just very empowering and inspiring and encouraging, especially as a person that had felt like I switched last minute wanting to go into psychiatry, but knew that I wanted to do that. And how am I going to convince people that like this is actually what I want to do? And the last thing, I found mentorship also through social media. Dr. Chase Anderson, who is at UCSF, I just reached out and I said, hey, can you be my mentor? And we talk like every now and then. We still check in and things like that. So I second also, you have to ask for what you want. And don't be afraid. And even on social media, use social media if you identify someone that you want to be a mentor for you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So I believe we have a first question from Zobia. Hello all, thank you for your time. When did you realize the specific field in psychiatry that you wanted to practice in?
I can answer because I guess I'm one of the subspecialists up here now. I fast tracked into child and adolescent psychiatry, so I'm a first year fellow at UCLA right now. I'm weird. I know I keep saying this, but I came into residency and kind of med school knowing that I wanted to do child and adolescent psychiatry in general. I love adult psychiatry. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to do both when I finish fellowship, but I just see that with children, you have the opportunity to kind of get in on the ground floor and all of those stressors, all of those ways that you can intervene in early life. And, we know in psychiatry that early detection, early diagnosis, early treatment is so important. So if I had the opportunity to change someone's trajectory, change prognosis, change the education that their family has regarding any type of mental illness, change any type of stigma that they have, from childhood to where you can kind of get in and on the ground floor. You're not going to save everybody, but that's why I was really drawn to child psychiatry, because some of the patients that we see, if you could just have gotten to them when they were like 10, when they were first going through this stuff and going through the foster care system, juvenile justice system, help them with family therapy, things like that, their life would be a lot better off. So I think that's why I chose, and I just feel like a cooler psychiatrist with children. Like I know the TikTok dances and stuff, and it can be a lot of ageism with adult, patients as well. And that's something that you face. And it's something that you overcome, but I just feel like a hipper, more comfortable psychiatrist when I'm working with less so the little children, but more so the teens. They may not think I'm so cool, but at least it's not like, who are you? Are you like, are you old enough to be a doctor? So I don't experience that as much.
So I'll say as the other subspecialist. So I am fellowshipped and boarded, so I'm double boarded in general and consultation liaison psychiatry, which I don't really get down with the kids. I see kids, you see kids in the emergency room, but that's not for me. I leave that to Dr. Tarrant. But CL is really the best subspecialty there is. You get to really see things at the intersection of all medical issues plus psychiatry, and you really understand why someone might act a certain way because they have a certain medical condition, or why certain medical conditions can lead to depression, or how certain substances can impact you totally. And I get to work in so many different settings. I work in the emergency room, in the ICU, I go to the dialysis center, L&D, anywhere that someone has the psychiatric need or has a psychiatric manifestation of a disease, I'm there. And it's really good to have the experience of working in the hospital. I still check labs. I know there are psychiatrists who don't, but I check labs. I need to know what the sodium level is. I need to know what's happening with your BUN and creatinine. I see what happens when someone takes PCP or K2 and they go into rhabdo, and I have to make decisions based on that. So it's really important to me to continue the intersection of medicine and psychiatry because we are a medical specialty, and I'm good for letting people know. So I love to have a challenge and figuring out a puzzle. I love consults. I love being in and out also. I know there's those of you in outpatient, you like to spend hours and hours with your patients. It's so nice, but I'm in and out with my consult. I'm in the ED quickly. Next second, I'm in the ICU. So it's really a different experience every single day. And that's why I love consults. And that's how I chose my subspecialty.
All right.
I know. Sorry. For me, so one of the things when I first came in was that I wanted to do OB-GYN. And I know how I wanted to work with women, and that was kind of my thing. But when I was talking actually with a mentor and just kind of saying, they were like, well, why OB, or what are you interested in? And then that's when I found out more about reproductive psychiatry. I was able this past year to work in a high-risk OB-GYN clinic with my attending. And so you're really kind of like meeting women, you're diagnosing, you're treating psychiatric disorders like around kind of the reproductive lifespan. So you're seeing people when they're pregnant, there is kind of a focus on the postpartum period. You're dealing with infertility loss, you're dealing with birth trauma. And it was embedded in the OB-GYN clinic, but just kind of being able to work at that interface, that's something where I was able to combine kind of enjoying OB, but also enjoying psychiatry and kind of be able to combine that love. So that's something kind of like down the road where I am planning on going in. There's not like really standalone fellowships. It's not officially recognized by ACGME, but there are different programs where you can do like a year fellowship. So that's one of the reasons when I chose psychiatry, I was like, oh, I could do this too and combine everything. So really, like, you just got to find your niche and just really kind of get in that way as well. So you don't have to like just abandon everything completely or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to pull up some of the comments, but oh, there we go. So we have a question from Erica. Firstly, thank you all for being here. Dr. Crum, can you go a little more in depth on why you chose psychiatry over emergency medicine? Also, what was your major in undergrad?
Yeah, so I majored in neuroscience here in Omaha, or I'm not in Omaha anymore, back in Omaha. But as for why I chose psych over emergency med, I actually really echo a lot of the things that Dr. Hairston said. I did a consult psych rotation my third year. And for me, the things that I enjoyed most about the ER was like this idea that you're taking care of patients who have high acuity. And I really liked the like liaison part of the job of you're really caring for patients who other doctors are kind of tired of, whether they are homeless and don't have primary care or things like that. That's kind of a vibe in the ER that I really appreciated. And I found that when I got to psych and did my consult rotation, it kind of had all of those same features, right? It had like the safety net feel of the ER because you're seeing all sorts of different patients. It had a high like diversity of patient population, but I really enjoyed the fast pace that consult had, as well as like the liaison part of the job of really like you're also educating the medical docs, the medical primary team, or whoever has consulted you. You're educating them on a lot of the psychiatric things that they just don't understand. And so I also enjoy checking labs and I enjoy that aspect of psychiatry and kind of like where it intersects with medicine. And so I also, jumping back to the last question, I plan on doing consult. We'll see if things change throughout residency, but it was kind of seeing that psychiatry had all the best aspects of the ER, at least in consult psych and in emergency psych as well. They also have a lot of those same features. And so kind of being able to take what I like from the ER and combine it with more detailed social histories and kind of get into the underlying mental health issues that lead to a lot of people to go to the ER in the first place is kind of what pushed me in that direction.
Yes, come on over, Isaiah. Come on.
So yeah, thank you. Next question that we have is from Julian. Thank you all for doing this for us. How would you recommend getting exposure to the field during undergrad?
I guess I can speak a little bit about kind of things that I did before med school. It is really hard to shadow in psychiatry. Even recently, someone reached out to me and asked about shadowing opportunities at our med school at UCLA. And a lot of it is because of like HIPAA or patient privacy for some reason. I mean, I get why, but it's a lot more protected in psychiatry. But one of the things that I did during undergrad was and then when I graduated, I actually worked as a mental health tech. And Dr. Harrison probably knows about it, Shepherd Pratt. It's one of the main psychiatric hospitals in Baltimore. And there I kind of was like a glorified nurse tech, but for on the psychiatric unit. So that was really my first exposure to it. And I had a degree in psychology. I didn't need any like advanced nursing degree or anything like that. It was really just a job that I was doing like in between college and then grad school. So that was my first exposure. And really all it did was show me that, wow, I really do like this. It didn't scare me away. Like I can do this job. And then when I finished in between grad school and med school, I got another job in like a community mental health setting where I was working with individuals in the community that had mental illness. It was like an interdisciplinary center, and I was kind of like a rehabilitation counselor. So I really just looked for opportunities that align with my interest in psychology and mental health, but that is not as easy to find. I feel like I kind of lucked up on those opportunities or was looking for things that were really specific to psychology, mental health. But otherwise in college, I was kind of just doing like shadowing just in general as a pre-med, in our student health center, things like that, that wasn't necessarily related to psychiatry. But I totally agree with what Terrence said in terms of like the social media aspect of things. Now I feel like that's more prevalent now than ever. I never would have had like an open Twitter, or if my Instagram is still private. Like I'm not out there on the social medias. I like to keep that separate. But now people are on my Twitter, on things like that, and getting to ask and getting different opportunities through just kind of seeking out mentors, seeking out people that they can have these connections with. And it doesn't have to be as formal. So I feel like that might make it a lot easier, because when I was coming up, I did not know any Black psychiatrists. I didn't know a thing about like Black psychiatrists or how to even shadow someone. So I feel like it should be a lot easier with just the representation that we're able to see now.
Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts?
So I guess it's not particularly shadowing, but I also, between undergrad and medical school, I took three gap years, and so 2 years I did 3 Americorps programs. 2 of those programs I did was called City Year when I did in my hometown of Cleveland, and so I worked one-on-one with students, and a lot of it was like reading and math interventions, but mostly it was actually like behavioral and working with understanding what's going on in their families, in their communities, because these are people who are from the same communities as me. So I had an understanding with that. And so it wasn't directly psychiatry related, but like I was able to kind of relate that to my down the line, my passion in psychiatry. But one of the last things I did, I actually was an Americorps health coach. And I'm not sure if that's around anymore. But I was trained in doing motivational interviewing. And so I actually used that in working with patients and helping them to reach their goals with the way that they want to reach those goals, but using the motivational interview skills. And that's something that actually you get trained to do in a lot of psychiatry programs. So it wasn't necessarily shadowing, but it was just ways of building experience.
All right, thank you. Sorry, everyone, having a little technical difficulty, but I guess in the meantime, I have a question about So for Dr. Hairston, what are you looking for in a strong applicant? I'm not sure if I can switch.
Can you hear me? If you can't see me.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So clearly Terrence is what I'm looking for in a strong applicant, but well, let me say that the way that I run my program is different than many programs in this country. So I do not believe in filtering people out because of their step scores, be it can't wait till it's gone, be it step 1 or step 2. I am really looking for a specific applicant who says that they want to work with the patient population that my hospital cares for. As you know, we are at Howard. We have a very specific mission. And if you do not care about the safeguarding of marginalized and minoritized people, if you do not want to understand how social determinants affect health completely, if that's not mentioned anywhere in your personal statement, you're not coming. You're not coming to an interview for my program because, one, that was not important for you. And I don't want you to come and be surprised or not be able to deal with people who have limited resources, who are in lower socioeconomic status, or who have dealt with racism and want to discuss that, or who have dealt with addiction. If you can't deal with patients like that, if you can't deal with quote unquote non-compliance without addressing the issues, then you can't come to my program because you're going to be miserable and I'm going to be miserable. And that's not the goal. Residency is hard enough. Medical education is too much already. So if, as Terrence and Isaiah said, that's why I was very clear in my events, like, if that's what you want to do, that needs to be in your personal statement. And for those programs that do not select you because of that being in your personal statement, you don't want to be there. Let's be very clear. You want to know before you even get there that that's not the place for you. If you can't talk about your interests, if you can't talk about social justice and its impact on mental health, if you can't discuss those things, then that's not the program for you, if that's what's important to you. So scores are important so that I know you're going to graduate from medical school. Yes, but choosing a program and me choosing residence is more important than that because it's 3 to 4 long years and you don't want it to be torture. I want you to remember who you are and what motivated you to be in this space. So a good applicant is someone, for me, for my program at Howard University, and when I leave, for anyone who's going to survive at Howard University, you have to care about these things. And I have to see that in your application. It can't just be in your personal statement also. It has to be when I look, were you a part of SNMA? Did you do anything in your community? Like when you wrote 15 research papers, you are author number 321, but was it anything that impacts the patients that I serve? Did it have anything to do with childhood trauma? Did it have anything to do with addiction? Did it have anything to do with what we care about and what our grants are for at Howard? So it's important when you think about what makes me a good applicant, it's different for each program. If you're going to go up or down the street, up 95, here in the DMV, you know, they are going to filter you out because of your scores. They're going to filter you out if you haven't done enough research or they haven't seen you present something or you can't talk about writing a paper. So it really depends on the program and where you want to be, what's important, what makes you a perfect, it's more like what makes you a good fit. There's no perfect applicant, but what makes you a good fit so that you'll be able to survive and I'll be able to survive as the program leadership.
Okay.
Can I just piggyback on that gem that Dr. Hairston dropped? After that event, I rewrote my entire personal statement because it was a generic, safe, you know, I'm safe. You can take me to your program, and I will play my role type of personal statement. And like that got thrown in the garbage. And it was I think my first line was, growing up, my goal was to be the Black doctor I never saw. It spent the entire intro paragraph talking about how there's not enough Black doctors and how every single person who has played a role in admissions is a part of that problem. And like, I knew that was going to screen me out of certain programs, but exactly what Dr. Hairston said, I don't want to go there anyway. And so just to reinforce what she said, the gem she just dropped, it really guided and changed the focus of my entire application season. So take heed to that.
And I just have to do a quick plug. My first year coming into UCLA, we overhauled our entire admissions process as well. We actually have a publication on it where we are doing holistic review. We do not look at your picture. We filter out the race on the ARIS part. I mean, that still comes up, but it's like not a thing where you can get like screened out for it. We don't look at your step score. All we care about is if you pass. We screen out for any type of biased language and letters of recommendation, because we know that letters of recommendation and MSPs, PEs can have biased language in it for minority medical students. So all of that. And then again, like Dr. Harrison said, if your application, if your CV doesn't have anything in it, if we're filtering for words like social justice, diversity, equity, those types of words we're looking for. We're looking for resilience and distance traveled. So none of that stuff that I mentioned had anything to do with clinical grades, gold humanism, AOA, and it's actual research out there that just shows how racist and biased those metrics are. So not all programs do this, unfortunately, but I agree with Dr. Hairston. If you're looking for a program that speaks to all of those things and they're screening you out because of it, you don't want to be in that program in the first place.
Thank you. Looks like, here we go. Next question we have from Kiesia. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to ask if you all had any tips on the virtual interview process. Good question.
I'll jump on this one. I have a lot of tips on the virtual interview process, as I'm sure Terrence does as well. We were the guinea pig class for virtual interviews. And I know that a lot of people are frustrated that it's still virtual, but I actually think that there's a lot of advantages for Black applicants with things being virtual, because we don't have money at the limiting factor that you normally would. With virtual interviews, I was able to interview in Boston one day and be in, LA the next, not LA, where was I? Sacramento the next day, and so like that couldn't happen with in person. And so my main thing is you have to be consistent. That's the thing I think that sticks out the most is through the virtual recruitment events and the interviews. Like Zoom fatigue is very real, and you don't have like that same excitement you get from like being in the city for the interview. So like by that last interview, you can be pretty exhausted. It can kind of show, and it can come across as like disinterest. And so one of the things that I think you have to do is you have to practice giving your answers virtually, because you can't rely on like that surge of adrenaline you would get in person. So one thing that I did is I had like my Zoom interview on one half of the screen, and I would have like Apple Notes on the other half of the screen for like little bullet points to help me remember certain things, so that when that Zoom fatigue does kick in, it's like, okay, what is my name? Okay, it's written right there. I got it. All right. And so I would do little things like that just to kind of make sure that I was being consistent from interview to interview and not being super out of it by the end. I think I always had the program director last, which was just bad luck for me. And so you really want to make sure you have safeguards to fight Zoom fatigue on your actual interview day. That's it for me.
If I could jump in also, first thing is I would say when you get up for your interviews, if your internet is messing up, as sometimes my internet messes up even now, and I can pay for and afford my internet, I am very clear up front. I'm saying, if my internet cuts out, are there any other ways that I can still continue this interview, because my internet sometimes cuts out? I mean, that's real. It's an inequity that we have. Like, not everyone has the same level of internet access. And if a program is not willing to acknowledge that, that's a red flag for you right there, automatically. Another thing is, I know people have this different viewpoints on backgrounds. And so what I'll say is I'll let you choose what kind of background you want. My background had my pride flags. I had Black art up on the wall, but that was me. I was being authentically me, right? So that was nothing that was like, I'm just showing off. It was I brought my full self to my interview. And when I had to work on the wall, I was also able to talk about it, right? So it wasn't like it was genuine talking about it. So like, if you're gonna be yourself, but don't try to be anyone else. I think that's probably the first rule of this interview cycle. I agree with what Isaiah said. I saved so much money. I mean, I'm so thankful because I know years before people were taking out loans just to do interviews. I saved so much money with these interviews. And the last thing I would say is that you definitely need to do mock interviews. I did mock interviews actually through SNMA last year. And so do mock interviews. I did mock interviews with my mentor, Dr. Williamson. And then we practice as applicants, we all ask each other questions and practice doing that. So definitely do mock interviews. And I said last thing, go to events, go to virtual events. I think that's also one of the best ways to prepare for your virtual interview, because believe it or not, your interview day, you're not going to be able to learn everything about the program. Like you're gonna get the meat of the stuff, but you're not going to be able to learn every single thing. So you need to go to virtual events before, maybe events afterwards. Definitely try to go to the night before events if you can with the residents. Those are, I think, even more crucial now in the virtual stage than what you can do in person. So you can really kind of see how the residents vibe with each other, if the residents are even have the energy to even come to these events. And if they come to these events, are they excited? Because you will notice if residents talk to each other or not. It still shows up over Zoom. So those are things that I think is important for the virtual interview.
And just technically, I know when I was like setting up, even for starting telehealth last year, because I did virtual interviews for fellowship, I had to get all types of lights and ring lights and just make sure that my lighting was right, because you won't be able to come across as bright as I'm pretty sure all of us can attest to on Zoom. So that's important as well, to really, like, you guys could probably see the light shining in my glasses, but I have like 2 lights set up on my desk, and really just make sure that is set up. I agree with Terrence about the background. I think when I was interviewing, I was like in a smaller bedroom, and it was I didn't want you to be able to see the bed directly behind me. So I made sure that I didn't have a background that was like too busy. It was just like neutral colors. But I don't have anything fancy or like really that, I guess, like attractive on my wall right now. But I agree. It just interviewing applicants last year, it was cool to see the art that they had in the background. It was cool to see, their animals run through like all of that stuff makes you a human. And that probably is like a little off-putting for somebody in surgery or something like that. But for psychiatry, we want to see that you're not a robot. Like, we know that your kid might be crying in the background, or that my cat jumps on my lap all the time and is getting in the middle of like my virtual interview. So that type of stuff happens, and it's like life happens. And I totally agree with you. If that's not accepted or received, then that's another red flag as well. And I can't second enough about going to the events. We held so many different like virtual recruitment events last year, and those specifically for LGBTQ or URM. And number one, you'll get to see who comes out for those events in terms of the residents and faculty, and do they even care about these things. But it really helps to put a face to a name. And I can say maybe like half of the people that we ended up matching this year, they were people that were like at the events. It was almost like it was Greek rush. Like, they were at every single event, and to where we were really, really getting to know them. And that's not necessary. Like, what Isaiah said, the fatigue is real. You don't have to come to everything, but that really did, number one, help them stand out. But then it also helped them learn more about our program and see if it was a good fit. So that's important as well.
Nice. Thank you.
And I can add just one quick thing about the events. Use those events as well to ask the real questions. It's the one question that I asked on every single interview, event, it didn't matter. I asked how their program responded to the protests in response to the deaths of George, Ahmaud, and Breonna last year. 2020 was the year that every program tried to show us how woke they were, and a lot of it was virtue signaling. Like, if you had to watch someone get choked out on Facebook Live to know that there's a problem with racism in America, I don't want to go to your program, because that's ridiculous, right? Not a single Black person was shocked when they saw George Floyd die, right? We weren't surprised. We were angered, but we weren't surprised. And so, like, that was something that I felt that white people didn't understand. And so for me, I made sure to ask the very uncomfortable questions. My recruitment event background was like Martin Luther King, like standing like right here, like with his arm outstretched. And I was very intentional in choosing that background so that programs would know wherever I go, Martin's coming with me. And so that's something that I would really use those recruitment events as an opportunity to ask those types of questions, because it also eliminated about half the programs off my list because they had a terrible answer to that question.
Okay. Our next question is by Oumo. If you struggle with your mental health in medical school, would you still recommend going to psychiatry? What are your thoughts on psychiatrists needing psychiatric support during residency?
Other Danielle,
Go ahead, Dr. Harrison.
No, I want you to answer. I can follow up.
Okay. I think that, sorry, kind of going back to the question, but if you have suffered with mental health or any type of illness, I think that it does help you when you go into psychiatry. It's different to just kind of learn about something and help somebody with it, but it's different if you've also experienced it. I know when I first went to medical school, I was moving across the country. I'm from Compton, California, born and raised, did everything in California, went to Washington, D.C. It was just me out there. So really adjusting, dealing with anxiety. And that was really kind of my first interaction where I did see a therapist. And that was very instrumental for me. And that's something that I talked about when I did apply for residency. And I think it just kind of, it makes you human. And that's one of the things that when you go into psychiatry, you have like a desire to meet people where they are. So if I'm seeing somebody coming in with a panic attack, if I'm seeing somebody dealing with something in the emergency department, I'm like, okay, like, let's breathe, let's talk about this. And I think it really strengthens your empathy. And even in residency, I think sometimes the misconception is that, well, you're a psychiatrist, you should be able to kind of like figure it out yourself or be able to cope. And I want to say, like, even with COVID this past year and just really the importance of practicing what you teach. So telling people to do self-care, but are you actually practicing it? Telling people to go to therapy, are you actually going to therapy? So I think that it's not just, okay, we're treating someone, we're helping someone, but also in order to help other people, you have to be able to help yourself. And I think that that's one of the things is when you go to a program, when you're looking for a program, do they offer that support for their residents? And even when you're on the interview trail, look at how the other residents are doing. So are they interacting with each other? Do they look burnt out? Talk to the interns, talk to the second years, talk if you can get one-on-one and just kind of get that real deal, because residency is hard, yes. But being able to have that support, being able to know to navigate if you do need help, so that you don't get burnt out, so that you don't hit that wall. So kind of going back, so if you have dealt with it, I think it is okay to talk about it. It makes you human, but as well as it's okay to seek help. And that's one of the things I feel my program really pushed us was, they were like, you guys should all like at least experience therapy, if not like go to it. And I'm very grateful for that as well.
Yes, what Danielle said. And also ask, I guess you can, first of all, I guess it's a combination of a couple different questions. When we are interviewing you on this virtual or wherever in person, and we say, do you have any questions for me? Don't say no. You better think of some question that you have for me about this program. Because if you're like, nope, do you have any questions for me? I'm like, no, I do not. But a question that you could ask would be like, is there support for any mental health needs or any health needs, period? But some programs, not mine, but some programs even require you to go through therapy or recommend that you go through therapy so that you can get ready for therapy in third year or second year, whatever year that you do it. So just, you can ask that. If that's something that's concerning to you, ask that. As far as my residents, as long as they tell me the truth and don't start acting like, I have to leave. I'm like, what? Why do you have to leave? Why? If you just say you got to go to therapy or something, I'm going to make a way. Like, oh, okay, I understand. But try to be upfront if you're comfortable with your program leadership or your program director or APD or whoever it is, and say like, I have decided to go to therapy and I just need some time. If you need to leave a few minutes early or something like that, so you can make sure you get to your appointment. Well, it's virtual. If you need the space to go to your virtual appointment or whatever, just let people know.
Awesome. So I believe we have a question by Kiatana. Hi, good evening, and thank you all. Can any of you talk about your setbacks in medical school and how they impacted or enhanced your career goals?
So I can definitely talk about this, and I think I can talk about it because I'm the most further away from it, and now I probably won't tear up. But when I was in medical school, I did not pass step 1 on my first attempt, and that was devastating to me. And it used to be like if someone said step 1 or USMLE, like I would start tearing up. Like it really, medical school is tough. And then if you don't pass your exams it makes you feel like you're not worthy and you're not worth it. And, that's how the medical education system and framework is built, to make you feel like you're less than if you don't pass an exam that we know has been systematically created to make sure that you don't pass. So I would say that now there's no better psychiatrist than me. So no one can touch me out here. But if I had let this exam determine my future, I wouldn't have even continued in medical school. I wouldn't even, as we say at Howard, cross the bridge. I wouldn't have even made it to my clinical years. And the way that I was able to get through this was, like Danielle said, going to therapy. I had to go to therapy because of that setback and really talk about the anxiety that led me to not passing, and also the anxiety and depression that resulted from not passing. Like there's no other psychiatrist, Black psychiatrist my age, who does what I do, who's in the New York Times and things like that. But an exam could not tell you that. I literally have had the opportunity. I consult for Google, for YouTube, for Microsoft. I get all the coins. But if it was that exam determining my future, I wouldn't have been able to make it. And I think that because I went through that adverse experience, I was very in the mode of, I'm going to prove to y'all that I am better than this exam, than these 3 digits that are presented on this paper. But I think that you really have to learn to address it and manage it. If something is a setback for you, discuss it with your therapist, with your mentors, whoever it is, and be prepared. I think that I'm going to say this today. I'm going to say this again on Saturday when we have another panel. Be prepared to answer this question. And I think that that's something that I wasn't really ready for. Some interviews that I went on, they were like, well, what do you have to say about that step 1 score? And I'm like, and it was panicking, and it was really traumatic for me. But other programs didn't ask me about it at all and just asked me about who I was. So be ready for it to come up and be ready to tell how you overcame it and what you did, and be ready to let your other attributes and your other qualities shine.
That was amazing, Dr. Hairston. Thank you so much for sharing that. Even me, I'm not even applying anymore, and that was encouraging. For me, I thought that I had cleared the hurdle when I was past step 1, but then like I failed internal medicine, which was like, oh, that there's something else after step 1 that kind of sucks. And so for me, the reason why was I had ADHD. That was never diagnosed or treated until I had actually failed step 1, and I realized maybe I should do something about this. And so for me, that was a really tough moment to like go through. But when I look back on it, it was something that I think really, really helped kind of push me into psychiatry. And I think it made me better. Being an unmedicated physician with ADHD is really, really hard. I can tell you, because of the days I forget to take my medicine, it's really hard. But kind of having to be a patient in psychiatry really made me more empathetic and more kind of understanding of the process. And something that I think not everyone realizes in psychiatry is every time you walk into a psychiatrist's office, you feel shame. It doesn't matter if it's your first time there or if it's your 50th time there, there's always going to be just a little tint of shame because of the stigma. And so like going through that, I was able to, one, recognize like the stigma in me, and to a much greater extent, recognize like all the stigma in the Black community. And for me, that really became like a goal that I wanted to address, a goal that I wanted to help fight. And so, like, I think having to be a patient really forced me to, it made me a better doctor and a better educator and a better mentor, especially in recognizing students who have all sorts of undiagnosed things that they're afraid to address, or afraid to admit they have. And so for me, that was a setback, but it was one that I was open to talking about on the interview trail. It was one that I mentioned it to an extent in my personal statement. And like, I don't necessarily always recommend self-disclosing. But for me, I was also able to like scapegoat ADHD as to why I failed the clerkship, which I had to explain anyway. And so for me, it really ended up being like a story of redemption after I got treated. And so it was definitely, I was definitely better for it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's like really helpful for people trying to go through the process and try to figure out moving forward from setbacks. Kind of couple questions about ERAS or ERAS. No, still haven't figured out how to say it, but how do your programs react to misdemeanors? I know it requires checking yes on ERAS. Do your programs read the explanation?
That was this from me. I would say, again, it depends on the program. Literally, like, some programs filter you out for everything, and you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to just let that roll off your back. And I'm just being 100% honest. If you don't have a certain step 1 score, a certain step 2 score, they're filtering you out. They're not even looking at your application. If you check that you've had a misdemeanor, they're not looking at your application. So if you get to the place where they are looking at your application, you have to be honest, because don't let us find out. Don't let you match, and then we find out later, because that ends your contract right there. And let me tell you, I have seen this. I've seen this year, and I've seen this last year, for someone not being honest about a question on their ERAS, and then it comes back up, and we can cancel your contract right then and there, and it gets reported to NRMP, it gets reported to ERAS and ACGME. So you got to say yes. And if it's me, and if it's program director, like, I know, yes, we're going to read your explanation and find out what happened. I know that we live in a unjust justice system. So I need to understand what happened. Were you protesting and then a police officer hit you in the head with a can of mace and then you ran away and that's how you got the misdemeanor? They called that resisting? Like, I need to know. That's going to be different than if you tried to rob me on the way to my car. So, but then maybe you needed some food. I don't know. A lot is happening in this world and we got to take it into account. But know that you're going to apply, you're going to get 15 rejections on the first day. You're going to get 10 rejections. You're going to get maybe 1 interview. You're going to wait, especially if you're applying to Howard University. Okay, I take a long time. I read the application. Don't email me. I don't care. Okay, you got to wait. But some people just knock you out early, and you just have to prepare yourself for that. Some people are not going to interview you because of the misdemeanor. Some people are going to take some time. You might be in their second wave or whatever it is. But do not lie. You have to be honest, because if you match and they find out that you lied, your contract is canceled, and there's not even any discussion about it.
Okay. And last question. So this is a technical question in regards to filling out ERAS and experience descriptions. Would you recommend writing paragraphs or descriptions in bullet form, or does it not matter? I think it's also for you.
I don't know if that matters, more so than like, what are you actually saying? I've seen it both ways, but I really just think what are you saying in either the paragraph or the bullet points? I don't know if I've ever like really paid attention, unless the formatting was just like horrific and it was like cluttered and hard to read. But I don't know if I've ever paid attention to that, reading applications.
I agree. It's either or. I did bullets just because I don't like writing a lot. But I was like very succinct and clear, and I had a goal of what I was saying and what I was doing. And I had people proofread stuff. So even that part of your application, have people read that as well, not just your personal statement. Although, I mean, I make spelling mistakes all the time. Like, and if I'm reading your application, you make a spelling mistake, you're human. Like, I don't care about that. But some people do, and you got to be prepared for that. So like, do your best to submit it as perfect as you can. One last thing about interviews, I would say, is that they come in waves. Like Dr. Harrison said, they come in waves. And if you're in a group, you have a group of friends, I just need you to be confident in yourself. That some people are going to be getting interviews and they're going to be like, I got interviews, and you may find yourself feeling down, and you need to recognize that. And it's okay to disconnect from people, because you also have to protect yourself. You have every right to do that. And if you can, just try not to compare yourself to others. Like, what's for you is meant for you. And that may sound cliche, but it's really true. Like, what's going to happen for you is going to happen for you. And it's not about anybody else. And I want to plug Dr. Crum's podcast, because he didn't talk about it. It's called Melanated Mindset. And he actually talks about his passion of mental health, specifically in the Black community and in the stigmas. And it is great. It's phenomenal, and everyone should listen to it.
All right, writing that down. Well, just wanted to kind of end with a last parting wisdom that the panelists have. And if anyone wants to start, yeah.
Well, I think this is a perfect moment to piggyback off of what Terrence just said. Like, what is for you is going to be for you. This journey, we just have to reach so many benchmarks that tells us that, you just have to pass this next test. You have to pass this next test. You're not good enough if you don't get this score, whatever the case is. But as you can see, all of us ended up here on our own separate journeys. And it was no way that we could have predicted anything like this would have happened, that we would be speaking on this panel right now if we really just didn't believe in ourselves, number one, and have people pour into us. And having a support system is definitely important, but you have to be your own biggest cheerleader as well. And I can't remember who said it, but that you are the prize in these, during this application cycle, in these interviews. Like, you really are the prize, and you are so coveted and so needed as Black and brown psychiatrists to work in our communities. And, if someone doesn't see that or doesn't appreciate that, then you don't need to be there anyway. So really, really just keep in mind that what's for you is going to be for you. And that also comes down to the rank list. Don't go chasing names. Don't go chasing, oh, this program has this program has this, X, Y, and Z. You really, really, really have to follow your heart, because I've seen people open up their letters and be bawling, crying, and not happy tears because they wanted to put this top-notch program, at the top of their list, and they kind of got played with and didn't end up matching there. And it's unfortunate, but that happens. So you really, really have to follow your gut and really just trust yourself, and know that you are worthy to be where you are. Know that you didn't get this far for no reason. And really just have to persevere and straighten your crown and your tiara as you're going through this application season. So just keep your heads up.
No, and that was so good, what Dr. Tarrant just said. But seriously, follow your passion. I think one of the themes for me was really looking back over kind of my life story and what did I enjoy doing, and just really kind of putting all of that together. And if psychiatry is something you want to go into, or whatever field that you want to go into, make sure you're passionate about it. Residency can get hard, and you want to be doing something that you love and something that you can see yourself doing once you get done with residency and all of that. And whatever you want to do, you can really design your life around that, and just keep going. Make sure you win, make sure you push through. Everybody do have different stories, but everybody do have different ways that they got here. And I am so thankful every day to be able to be in the position that I am in, to be a psychiatrist, to meet my patients where they are, to try to end the stigma, to try to advocate, to try to educate, and just explain what it is that we do, how we can help meet people where they are, and just do our best every day. So I'm very thankful to have been a part of this panelist. I'm very thankful for everyone who's here, who's just like pouring out wisdom. And if you guys have any questions, anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Like, reach out if somebody inspires you, or if you have a question. When you're going on your interview trail, reach out and just talk to people candidly. I've had people reach out to me to talk candidly about my residency experience. So don't it can't hurt to reach out. People are willing to help you. People are willing to talk with you in any way that they can. And the community is pretty small. So if I can't answer a question, or you got a question about something, I can ask someone else and say, hey, I got somebody who's interested in this, or hey, I know you've been through this. So definitely reach out. It doesn't hurt to ask. Thank you.
Definitely, just piggybacking on that, for sure, reaching out to as many people as you can that are at the schools that you're interested in. The recruitment events, just reemphasizing that, almost every interview that I got came from a program that I had connected with previously in the interview trail. I was able to make connections with residents. If there was a Black resident at a recruitment event, I was sending them a private message, no matter what, asking to set up something, whether it was an email chain or a Zoom call. And with the Black psychiatry family, it's real. We protect our own. We want to see as many of us enter the field of psychiatry as possible. This intern class was super Black. It was great. We blackened it up, a nice infusion of melanin. And the plus of that is, like, if you're interested in a program and you only know one of us, like, let's say you hate Pittsburgh, it's like, there's no way I'm going there, but like, I'm really interested in LA. I guess we have LA in the call, but let's say we didn't. I'm really interested in LA. Like, we know people, Black psych residents in LA. We know we're everywhere now. They can't hide us anymore. There's too many of us. And so if you're interested in psych and it's like, I want to go to this program, I'm interested in this program, let us know. And we will make the connect, because this is what we do, right? We're a family. We have to protect each other. And so going to the recruitment events, making that connection, reaching out, we're waiting for you to do it. So that's my little 2 cents.
I would say, just last thing, you are going to be a psychiatrist. You are going to be a psychiatrist. You're going to be a psychiatrist, and that's it. No matter what, you are going to be a psychiatrist. Figure out what's important to you, be it location, be it if you have a partner or not, be it family, be it if they have the amount of Black residents, amount of LGBTQ plus residents, whatever is important to you, figure that out and go from there. Be completely honest. And I want to say, be as much of you as you feel safe. And if there's a place that you don't feel safe being as much as you, being safe as all of you, question that, okay? Question that, but like, do what you have to do to feel safe. But I hope that you can feel safe being your full self and being your full authentic self in any space. And again, you're going to be a psychiatrist. You are needed, you are wanted, you're going to be a psychiatrist.
I agree with everything that was said. I just want to say that, go forth with the confidence of a mediocre white man in corporate America who is high paid. Go have that same energy, believe in yourself and preserve yourself. Networking is important. So if you're not a part of the APA Black Caucus, if you're not a part of the Black Psychiatrists of America, if you don't follow my little platform at Black Psychiatry, get into it. Like, you need to do that. So I can't stress enough, like, the importance of networking and the importance of the Black Psychiatry fam. Like, we are here. We're not unicorns. We exist. You might not see us in your institution, but we are out here. Until Dr. Tarrant or Dr. Robinson or Dr. Embry or Dr. Crum take over as the Black Caucus president, I am here. So know that we are here. We're already here. We're waiting for you to come. Do whatever you need to do to reach out. That being said, don't DM me and talk about Dr. Hairston. I sent my application. I haven't heard an answer yet. Don't do that. Okay. Be smart. Believe in yourself. And I just want to say I'm so proud of all the panelists. Like, they might not even know for Dr. Embry and Dr. Crum. I look at y'all on Twitter all the time. Like, I'm just so proud of them. I don't even feel like I need to be on panels anymore after this. My two mentees, Dr. Robinson and Dr. Torrey, I'm so proud of y'all. And yeah, y'all can do this. It might take some time. Everyone's journey is not the same. But Fred, I'll be looking for your application, and let's get into it.
All right, sounds good. So, sorry we weren't able to get to everyone's questions, but thank you again to our amazing panelists. We appreciate your support of the SNMA and our membership. For those of you in the audience, follow us on Instagram at SNMA_official and at SNMA on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. But most importantly, if you're not a national member, please visit snma.org to sign up and get connected. Thanks for tuning in, and our next event will be September 1st, 8 p.m., and we'll be talking about preventative medicine. Thank you, everyone.